Hello, Monetization Nation. I'm Nathan Gwilliam, your host, and today I'm joined by John Weiler. John began his writing career as a hit TV writer for shows such as National Geographic's Alaska State Troopers. In 2014, he transitioned into copywriting, blogging, and book publishing, working for several marketing agencies along the way and publishing multiple best-selling books, including Instant Credibility Online. In today's episode, we're going to discuss 5 ways we can establish our credibility and earn the trust of our customers. We will also cover the following key takeaways. Number 1, trust is the gateway to sales. Number 2, one of the best ways to build credibility is by being consistent. Number 3, if we aren't providing value to our customers, it's very difficult to be seen as credible. Number 4, one of the best ways we can connect with our customers is by finding a problem that we have both faced. Number 5, URLs can help establish our credibility. And number 6, the online content we post should be valuable, unique, and surprising. Thank you so much for joining us today, John.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
Can you share with us something that you are super passionate about?
Outside of marketing, I am very passionate about meditation, which I have a book on as well. I've been meditating for about 20 years. It's really had a big transformational effect on my life. Really, I used to have really bad anxiety. So yeah, meditation is something I'm super passionate about and I love doing. Yeah.
All right. Can you share with us the greatest home run that you've hit in your career related to credibility?
I would say the thing I'm most proud of with credibility is probably the number of books that I've sold, which, you know, compared to some authors, it's probably not that much, but I just crossed the 10,000 book mark.
Yeah, congratulations. That's great.
Thank you, in the summer. So I'm really stoked about that. And, you know, those 10,000 books, that's like about 100,000. I think it's a little bit over $100,000 in book sales. So to me, book writing is what I love to do. And to kind of hit that milestone was a big deal for me.
Yeah, congratulations. Can you tell us about the biggest mistake that you've made or failure that you've had related to credibility and what you learned from it?
Yeah, instant credibility online. I talk about like blogging and stuff and how you're supposed to, one of the essential factors of if you're going to blog and it's going to help you with your credibility, it has to be consistent. And I totally have dropped the ball on, honestly, a couple blogs along the way. Even my current blog, like, you know, the tough thing about marketing is like, you need to pivot, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I dropped my last blog, it was just kind of a time. It's like, is this the right direction I need to go? And I'm actually kind of in the middle of a pivot. I'm going to pivot away from it. And I am going to take my own advice and get my blog off my site because I do think a blog that is, you know, left just kind of sitting there does no one any good for credibility. So
your point is be consistent. And your point is if it's not working to get you where you want to go long-term, make sure you pivot, make sure you move on, right? What you learned is don't stick with it if it doesn't work for where you want to be. That's right. So many people stay with things even though it doesn't fit their vision anymore, but they've got that sunk cost fallacy where they feel they've got to keep doing it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Especially like I have a book and I'm saying like, oh, you need to do this. And then I'm kind of like not taking my own advice at a point, but at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you need to pivot sometimes. And, you know, you shouldn't just stick with things to do it. You know, there should be a purpose in the grand scheme of things.
One of the biggest tectonic shifts that I talk about, I think the biggest tectonic shift happening today is credibility marketing, right? I think 25 years ago, businesses used to buy all the advertising they could afford, and then they would use that to tell the world how awesome they were in their own voice, right? And that strategy really does not work very effectively anymore. Businesses are having to communicate through a much more effective, credibly effective strategy, such as influencer marketing or building reviews online or word of mouth marketing or customer testimonial videos, right? All these different ways where you can communicate through much more credible sources than just telling the world you're awesome. So I think that is as big of a tectonic shift today as getting online was 20 years ago, right? And the businesses that chose to not get online, they lost. They went out of business. They lost market share. And I think the businesses that just try to tell the world they're awesome and don't market credibly, what happens is 70% of their customers don't trust anything they have to say about themselves. And they talk to their customers, and then their customers go research them online and read their reviews. And if they're not doing a good job of credibly marketing, people are going to go somewhere else because they don't trust the business. The business is biased. What are your thoughts on that? Do you really think credibility marketing could be one of the top tectonic shifts happening today?
Definitely, definitely. Reviews are important. They're so important, and even credibility is evolving in a sense. I talk about testimonials in my book, but to be honest, like if you look at how testimonials are done these days, like even that's evolving. More and more people are doing video testimonials, or like businesses are doing these big, like kind of corporate, like testimonial / case study video. So, and even general case studies. I have a lot of friends in marketing, and you look at case studies from like 5-10 years ago, they look different. They look dramatically different. There's lots of like quotes spread throughout them from the business owners and stuff like that.
Much more visual.
Yeah, much more visual.
And a lot of case studies today are even done via video, not even a written little booklet.
So yeah, I think even just credibility is evolving itself. And
so why do you think credibility marketing is so important today?
I think there could be several reasons. One is I do think there's more kind of like distrust in society, almost more than ever. You could see that with like in the recent political all the political stuff going on here in the US. There's just a lot of distrust. No one really like believes each other. People even question the science and stuff. So, it's I think that has something to do with it. I also think from a business perspective, there's so much competition these days and so many businesses online, whereas like maybe 10-15 years ago, like the number of businesses online was much different. I'm sure you've seen it as a podcaster, like the number of, and I see it as an author too, like the number of books that flood the market, year after year. It's like, you really need to be able to prove that like, hey, I have something to say. You can trust me. Trust is the gateway to sales. If you cannot get trust, then.
You made a really good point that even the science is being distrusted today. And it seems to me, and tell me if maybe I'm just biased in this point of view, but it seems like the science has been manipulated and politicized on both sides. I'm not saying one side is right or one side is wrong, but it feels like science has been politicized, and people try to get science to say whatever they want it to say, right? Thoughts on that?
I definitely have thoughts on that. I think you are right. So in terms of just, political stuff, I can't really say that I've heard anything like incredibly specific about the science being manipulated, but I will say I'm a pretty hardcore intermittent faster. I've been fasting for like 2 years, and I've read tons and tons of books on the subject. And I've definitely come across in this intermittent fasting world, you find a lot of stuff about dietary guidelines and dietary advice and studies. It's totally like manipulated. So like marketing companies are like paying for studies and stuff like this. So from like a political standpoint, I mean, they have all these like lobbyists and stuff like that. I would not be surprised if the science is being manipulated somehow to try and, again, kind of appear more credible. So.
And I was just specifically referring to like the vaccines, right? You see people on both sides, and I'm not saying which side is right or which side is wrong, but you see people on both sides that are claiming science that says different things, right?
Yeah.
And they're claiming to follow the science, but they're polar opposites what they're saying we should follow, right?
And this has been happening in the food industry for years. And it's because the science is being essentially like manipulated, or there's studies being done that or manipulating data to make it appear credible when it's not. That's why there's just so much confusing like diet advice out there. It's just contradicting each other. So
You talk a lot about value. You talk about how marketing isn't all about credibility, but it's also about delivering value. And that's funny that you bring up this point, because I think that value is a huge piece of credibility. And I know you agree with this point, but it feels like you promise something, or the customer invests something. They invest time or they invest money, and then we have to give them value that exceeds whatever they invested in us. And if we do that, our credibility grows. And if we don't do that, if we've taken advantage of it, we lose credibility. It's like this spiral that either goes up or it goes down. Any thoughts on that? How are value and credibility interrelated?
yeah, value is really important. Credibility by itself, just saying like, for example, if your work has appeared on like Forbes or something, or you're a TEDx speaker, that's great. That's really good for credibility. But value, I think, is ultimately what people want. They want value if they're going to give you money. So I think case studies are a really great example of where kind of value and credibility arise. So because you're showing the value that you have created for other customers. And I'll go off on just a little bit of a tangent here, if that's all right. So in storytelling, like I said, my background is TV. I worked in the television world for years writing stories. And there's this principle in storytelling called mirror characters, which means that when there's like a character in the movie, sometimes that, like, let's say the protagonist is a bit conflicted about what choice he wants to make, and he comes in contact with a character that has already made the choice that he wants to make. And then the protagonist essentially will see himself in the character. Let me give you a more specific example, like Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of as you were describing.
Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's mirror character. He gives a glimpse into the future of what Luke could become if he continues down the dark path. In Lord of the Rings, Gollum is a mirror character for Frodo. I'm talking all about kind of like negative mirror characters here, but there's positive ones too. A positive one would be in Titanic. Jack is the mirror character for Rose. He's kind of this like free spirited like person that she would like to become because she's super trapped. So now in marketing terms, case studies, testimonials, the testimonial and the case study is essentially like a mirror character for what the customer could become. So I think in that sense, like, this is where credibility and value can align, because the customer or potential customer is seeing the value you can get, and they're also seeing your credibility at a same time.
So value and credibility through mirror characters, through case studies. Yeah, I love that. It's the kind of been there, done that kind of credibility. It's the same concept as if I want to lose weight through intermittent fasting, like you've done, right?
Yeah.
I would want to talk to someone like you that's been successful at it. I wouldn't want to go to someone that just read a book on it, right? Someone that was book smart but hadn't done that. There's a credibility that comes from been there, done that experiences. And that's what the case study shows, right? You show a client that's been there, done that, or that's what a mirror character in a movie does, is they show the kind of the been there, done that, what your life could be like if you do this.
Exactly. And there's I actually have a client. She runs a yoga business, and she's kind of like teaching yoga teachers how to be successful online and to really grow their businesses. And she actually uses this kind of mirror character technique in the sense that she is the mirror character for what the clients could become, because she's really successful. I think she pulls in, I don't know exactly, but I'm guessing, a couple millions of dollars per year with her business. And she lives a very like attractive lifestyle. She's complete freedom to work wherever she wants. She lives in Mexico, and Wyoming part of the year. She gets to, create her own schedule, has lots of investments, and essentially she's that person that her clients want to become. So yeah, you can be the mirror character too. If anyone remembers Jared, the Subway guy,
Yeah, that's right.
he was kind of like a mirror character for what people who go eat Subway can become if they eat Subway a lot. So yeah.
I had never thought of that, but that makes a lot of sense. Jared, the Subway guy, was credible because he had been there and done that. He had lost weight eating Subway sandwiches and following this diet that he was recommending, where there weren't a lot of other people that could do that campaign that he did. And he was so successful because he had been there, done that, and was credible. Interesting. So if we want to pick a spokesperson for our products and we want to pick someone that's credible, we don't just pick someone that's famous. We pick someone that is credible, that's been there, done that, right?
Yep.
That's really cool. In fact, Russell Brunson talks a lot about, picking your, what do you call it? His attractive character, right? That you should have a face of your brand. It's not just a corporation they're interacting with, but there is a person that's the face of that brand, like he is for his brand. And maybe it's a point that we need to learn as entrepreneurs is as we're picking our attractive character, whether that be us or somebody else, it probably should be someone who's been there and done that.
Totally. And this point by Russell Brunson, I'm a fan of Russell Brunson. I've read at least one of his books, but this is so true in marketing. Like people connect with faces and with people. So I've had this kind of conversation with my friends, and I've read it in books and stuff. And, if you're trying to get someone to donate to a cause in Africa, to like help the children or something, you want to show like one child, because, or a few individual childs, and not like just masses of people who seem like they're in poverty, because, we're people, we want to connect with other human beings. And if you just zone in on the one person, you really can kind of form this bond with them. It's like having like a brand voice essentially, So, a brand is like a person essentially. So people connect with that kind of thing.
Especially if you're not just having a child that's a face, but you're telling the story of the child.
Oh yeah.
Right. When you can see that child has been there, done that, right? Has, the kind of life they've experienced, the hardship they've gone through, you're going to connect with them a lot more. They're going to be credible in a way that others wouldn't, because you see that they've actually been there, done that. Whereas if it's just a group of kids, they don't have that credibility because you can't connect with them and you can't see the story.
But yeah, and to talk a bit more about that, one thing I think I have another new book coming out next year, and I've probably talked about this in some of my other ones, but one thing I always suggest like people with their websites to do is always to kind of like name some of their hobbies and stuff, on their about page or just in their marketing and materials. Because the thing is, once you have some of your hobbies out there, for example, like I say, I meditate, right? So if people out there are hearing that I meditate, and all you listeners, some of you hear that you meditate, you're probably going to be like, oh, that's pretty cool. This guy meditates. Like I meditate too. So we form some kind of connection. So I think these kind of like little personal things are really important in marketing, because I've won clients because I was like as a Kobe Bryant fan, and me and the client like both like loved Kobe Bryant, so
So in my book, I call that affinity, right? When we find people that we have these shared connections, they're people like us, we love the same thing, we build an affinity with them, and that builds credibility. That is an incredibly effective marketing strategy. The thing is, we just have to not ever abuse it, right? If we find out they're a Kobe Bryant fan and then we pretend to be a Kobe Bryant fan just because we think that'll connect us with them, and then the first second they find out we really don't know anything about Kobe Bryant, we lose so much credibility in the process. So it works well as long as we really are credible and honest and don't manipulate the strategy.
Yeah. It's really important. I think this, and I talk about it a lot at the end of my book. And, I'm sure some people are going to read my book and use the techniques that I give in the wrong way. And there's nothing I can really do about that. But at the end of the day, if you get found out you're trying to appear if you're lying, and you do so publicly online, and it could come back to haunt you. So you could damage your credibility, and then, you can repair things, but I mean, it's all about trust. So
yeah, so these principles of credibility, they aren't meant to manipulate someone into making a sale, right? We really need to be credible, is the most important point here. It's not about being fake and finding a way to be something we're not. It's about being credible and then communicating that with our audience. In your book, you talk about URLs in your second chapter, and you talk about how URLs are seriously a big deal. Why do you think URLs are such a big deal?
I think it's pretty simple because they show that you care about your business. So if you have a URL that says your name, like Michael Thomas or something, at www.michaelthomas.squarespace.com or something like that. That's yeah, which I think people do, but I know personally, whenever I see like an email address from someone that's, my business name at gmail.com, it's just like a total turnoff. And I'm thinking that this person isn't investing in their business. And it's like, if they don't have the money to invest in their own business, then why should I even spend time, business wise with that person? So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I agree with you. So what are some of the quick strategies that we can talk about how to pick a good domain name? So like get the .com, don't put a hyphen in it, don't do a misspelling. Like what advice do you have?
Okay. That's all good advice. I would say one good thing is there's several different strategies you could take. So Ramit Sethi actually has a pretty good one. I don't know if you're familiar with Ramit Sethi. His blog is, I believe it's iwillteachyoutoberich.com. So it's a bit of a mouthful, don't get me wrong. But that is showing tells you exactly what the website is about.
Yeah.
It tells you exactly what you're going to get, so this is a very, I think, beneficial type of URL where you're saying what is the benefit in it. For one of mine, I have ordinarydudemeditation.com, and I am naming the target audience in my URL. So that's another one because if you name who your customer is, then, and the service as well, for me, meditation. So
and the keyword too.
And the keyword. So that's actually another thing too. The keyword, if you really want to like rank for something, having the keyword in the URL is really great. It's really going to help you rank for whatever that phrase is.
Yeah, I agree. Very important to get a domain name that reflects the professionalism of your organization and adds the credibility. It makes a big difference. All right, talk to me about social media. How does social media affect our credibility?
So I think the kind of obvious way is with like followers and stuff like this. If you have a Facebook page with, 1 million followers or something like that, it's going to appear way more credible than someone who just has 50 or something like that, or even a couple thousand. I was really involved in the entrepreneurial community in Bangkok, I'd say about 7 years ago. And I used to hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs there. And there was this one entrepreneur who won an award for one of the best new entrepreneurs in Bangkok. And part of, I believe, why he won it was because he had a huge number of followers on Facebook, 50,000 or something. And I remember talking with him after the event, and he was saying, he's like, oh, I just bought those on Fiverr, which is terrible. But I do think, I'm not suggesting anyone out there do that, especially now, actually, because you will get dinged for that in Facebook. So definitely don't do that. I do think numbers count with this kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. The right kind of users count. Okay, so let's talk about blogs. How do blogs help us earn the trust and credibility in our audience?
Well, so with blogs, and here's something I can add on to the social media thing. Like we were talking about earlier, because consistency is really important. So consistency, not just for blogging, but social media as well. So if you're going to do social media, show up. People will trust you more if you show up than rather just coming and going stuff. And admittedly, this is something I struggle with as well. I think a lot of people, solopreneurs and stuff, struggle with it. So, it's just something to keep in mind. The more you can be consistent, the more credible you're going to appear. But blogging in general, talking about that specifically, how you can, there's many different purposes of blogs. Some people just want to rank. Ranking is really important, but just from a credibility standpoint, don't just say something that everyone else is saying. There's so many blogs out there that the internet is just littered, countless numbers of blogs that just repeat the same thing. It's just like very general advice. One way to make yourself appear even more credible is kind of saying stuff that is like surprising and maybe people don't hear very often. I don't know if you've heard of Chip and Dan Heath's book Made to Stick. One of the 6 things they talk about, six things that make a sticky message, or one of them is like surprising or unique. And I've learned this from even other bloggers I've followed, and they'll say a couple points that are like completely surprising, because it will really just all of a sudden wake the person up that they're seeing something that's not the usual advice. Of course, make sure you believe what you're saying. Don't just so if you're going to say something surprising, like for me with like meditation, for example, I always say people like, look, you don't have to sit, which isn't surprising for everyone, but it is surprising for some people. Because they're like, oh, I've been taught like, oh, you have to sit and it's really uncomfortable and stuff. So yeah.
So be a thought leader, be unique. Don't just parrot at what everyone else is saying.
Thank you so much, John, for sharing your stories and insights with us today. To learn more about or connect with John, you can check out his books on Amazon or visit his website at johnweiler.co. And there's links to each of those sites in the blog post for this episode on our website. You can also get a free copy about my ebook about passion marketing and learn how you can become a top priority of your ideal customers at passionmarketing.com. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and I wish you success in establishing your credibility. Do you want to become a better digital monetizer? To receive great monetization stories and secrets, please go to monetizationnation.com and join free. And if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the show and share it.